The Cultural War, Fear, Manipulation, and the Legacy of Thomas Jefferson. By Unbiased Politics. In the annals of American history, few figures loom as large as Thomas Jefferson. The third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson championed the principles of liberty, secularism, and individual rights. His vision for America was deeply rooted in Enlightenment ideals, advocating for the separation of church and state, personal autonomy, and a diverse and inclusive society. Fast forward to contemporary American politics, and we find ourselves embroiled in a cultural war that pits these Jeffersonian ideals against a rising tide of conservative rhetoric. Figures like Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, and Laura Ingraham have become the torchbearers of a movement that seeks to return to traditional values and increase religious influence in public life. This clash between their beliefs and Jeffersonian ideals highlights the cultural battleground where secularism confronts religious fundamentalism, multiculturalism challenges nationalism, and individual freedom clashes with societal control. Additionally, the rapidly changing world exacerbates the divide between rural America and urban centers. Secularism versus religious fundamentalism. A central theme in this cultural war is the tension between secularism and religious fundamentalism. Conservative commentators frequently invoke religious rhetoric to resonate with audiences who hold traditional Christian values. Laura Ingraham, for instance, frames her arguments as a defense of Christian morality against what she describes as a liberal assault. This narrative suggests that reintroducing religious influence into public life is crucial for preserving moral order and national unity. However, Jefferson's vision was deeply rooted in Enlightenment principles, including the separation of church and state. He believed that government should not interfere in religious matters and that individuals of all faiths, or none, should have equal rights. His commitment to secularism was designed to ensure that personal beliefs did not dictate public policy. The conservative push for increased religious influence in public life represents a significant departure from Jefferson's ideal of a secular democracy that values personal freedom and diversity. Multiculturalism versus nationalism. Another battleground in the cultural war is the conflict between multiculturalism and nationalism. Conservative commentators often frame multiculturalism as a threat to traditional American values and identity. Tucker Carlson, for example, depicts multiculturalism as an existential threat, advocating for policies he believes will protect traditional values from the perceived dangers of a diverse society. Jefferson's vision for America, however, was one of inclusion and equality. He believed in the potential of a diverse society where individuals from various backgrounds could coexist and contribute to the nation's progress. Jefferson's commitment to liberty and equality stands in contrast to the conservative emphasis on maintaining a homogeneous cultural identity. The push for nationalist control over American culture and politics contradicts Jefferson's ideal of a nation built on the principles of diversity and equal opportunity. Freedom versus societal control. The conservative narrative also highlights a clash between individual freedom and societal control. Conservative commentators argue that progressive social policies and changes threaten individual liberties by imposing new norms and restrictions. Ben Shapiro, for example, underscores the need to preserve traditional values as a safeguard against what he sees as encroachments on personal freedom by progressive forces. Thomas Jefferson's approach to freedom was grounded in the belief that personal autonomy and individual rights are fundamental to a just society. He supported the idea that individuals should be free to pursue their own paths without undue interference from societal norms or government restrictions. The conservative argument for maintaining traditional values at the expense of personal freedoms contrasts sharply with Jefferson's vision of a society where individual liberty is protected and where people are free to make their own choices. Rural America versus urban centers. The cultural war is further complicated by the growing divide between rural America and urban centers. As the world evolves with technological advancements, social changes, and economic shifts, many rural communities feel increasingly disconnected from the modernizing trends of urban life. Rural America often clings to traditional values and lifestyles, viewing rapid changes in technology and culture with skepticism or resistance. This sense of alienation can be exploited by conservative commentators who frame themselves as defenders of a vanishing way of life against a progressive onslaught. Urban centers, on the other hand, are often seen as bastions of modernity, diversity, and progressive ideals. These areas are typically more accepting of new social norms and cultural changes, embracing a more inclusive and rapidly evolving lifestyle. The contrast between rural and urban experiences underscores a significant cultural and ideological divide within the country. While urban areas may drive innovation and social progress, rural communities often grapple with feelings of displacement and nostalgia for a perceived simpler past. Jefferson's vision of an informed and engaged citizenry contrasts with the experiences of many in rural America who feel marginalized by contemporary norms. He advocated for education and rational discourse as tools for bridging societal divides. The conservative narrative, which appeals to fears and insecurities, often exploits this divide rather than addressing it constructively. Jefferson's ideals of progress and inclusivity offer a framework for understanding how to navigate the tensions between traditional values and modern advancements. Fear and manipulation tactics. Conservative commentators often use fear and manipulation tactics to advance their agenda by tapping into deep-seated anxieties and uncertainties. Here's how they do it. Exaggerating threats. By highlighting perceived threats to traditional values and national security, they create a sense of urgency and fear among their audience. This tactic taps into primal survival instincts, making people more likely to support policies or candidates that promise protection. Creating in-group versus out-group dynamics. Framing issues in terms of us versus them fosters a tribal mentality. This can be seen in discussions about immigration, where multiculturalism is portrayed as a threat to American identity. This manipulates people into feeling that their way of life is under attack, rallying them to defend their in-group. Invoking religious rhetoric. By framing their arguments as a defense of Christian morality, commentators suggest that secularism and progressive policies are direct assaults on religious freedom. This creates a moral panic, encouraging people to support policies that align with their religious beliefs. Highlighting economic insecurity. Emphasizing job losses, economic downturns, and the perceived negative impacts of globalization exploits economic insecurities to rally support for protectionist and nationalist policies. Exploiting rural versus urban divides. The divide between rural and urban America is often exploited to create a sense of alienation among rural communities. Conservative commentators frame urban centers as out of touch with traditional values, portraying them as bastions of progressive ideals that threaten rural ways of life. Using fear to suppress opposition. Fear can also be used to diminish voter turnout or discredit political opponents. By casting doubt on the competency or intentions of opposing candidates, conservative commentators can make their audience fearful of alternative choices. Conclusion. Navigating the cultural divide. The cultural war between secularism and religious fundamentalism, multiculturalism and nationalism, and freedom versus societal control reveals deep-seated tensions in American society. Conservative commentators harness these conflicts to appeal to traditional values and religious beliefs, framing modern changes as threats to their vision of America. In contrast, Thomas Jefferson's principles of secular governance, inclusion, and personal freedom offer a different perspective on how to navigate these cultural divides. As American society continues to grapple with these issues, reflecting on Jefferson's ideals provides valuable insights into the ongoing debate over the direction of the nation and the future of its democratic values.